I'm going to do a little bit on the background, and there may be some gardening going on in the back, in the sound background. The visual background is something we've worked on first by using a hake brush to wet down the area. I will say that this area seems like it's almost a little bit too small for this brush, and it gets to be a little unruly. They do make smaller hake brushes, like this one, and like I hope I've said, it's a really inexpensive brush and a quick way to wet down a large area without activating the color below. What I'm going to try now is I'm just going to sort of go with it with my go for it with my, there we go, number 12 round, because it is the background, and I'm not needing to be delicate and so kid glove like, because activating color here and there is going to help push it back and blur it out sort of that much more. So what I'm trying to say is use that hake brush is a great tool to have, and to learn how to wet down large areas quickly, especially when you want to make sure that the color, that you're not lifting up a bunch of color. But as you can see here, I'm really not worried about lifting up color. I'm trying to lift some here and there. This edge is bugging me. Let's see. By the way, I know I didn't really finish that background shape. Let me see if I can find quickly a number 4 round, so it's a little bit more representative of what you guys brush you may have. For some reason I'm not seeing the brush that I have been using for this class, the number 4 round, but this is a similar one. So let's see, I wanted to kind of make sure that I wet down up next to the shape. I'm also going to sort of come in, and this hard line here I'm going to scrub away at a little bit, and actually that's what I'm going to do down here as well. I wanted this table to not composition wise, you don't want confusion of where one shape starts and another ends. Also sort of described as you don't want things tangent to one another. That is sort of a decent sized discussion, but the line of this table started getting pretty much just mixing in with where the bowl lip started changing directions, and I don't want that. I want to be pretty clear where visually where the bowl is in space and where the table is in space. And if there's situations where one line is sort of running into another, or one line is right up against another, two shapes are not overlapping, but they're just adjacent to each other, touching. It confuses the eye, the viewer, of who's in front and who's in back. I'm going to come back and fuss with that a little bit more a little bit later. But for now, I just want to sort of keep going with some darker background colors. That's pretty neutral gray, isn't it? I'm gonna mix, this is one of my favorites, a little bit of a quinacridone rose with a decent amount of indigo. Can make, indigo is, I'm going fast, you guys, I know. Indigo is that beautiful bluish black, so you can make a really nice dark almost black violet with indigo and quinacridone rose. And you could make it even more blue by adding some blue. In that case, I added the ultramarine blue. So some cool weird things happening here. Mostly I'm just trying to make sure that I leave a light value around the apple is what I'm trying to highlight and to focus the eye towards. If color starts, one thing that will often happen is you'll need to hold it at an angle so that the color doesn't start creeping up. If there's too much water down here, it can start creeping up anyways, because all this water is needing some place to dry. So it will find the easiest place for it to dry, and sometimes that means it's just going to gradually keep coming back up into your white paper, and you don't want that paper white. At which point you can play a little back and forth. I'm going to introduce a little bit more white. I'm sorry, a little bit more clear water. Kind of functions in a similar way as white. Oh, I picked up a little red. That's cool. It's going to have a sort of glowy effect. Kind of like that. And like I said, push it back even a little bit more. I'm going to keep just pulling that water in the corner and soaking it up. I want to get even darker in this corner, so I'm gonna use this number 4 round to bring in. I see some more color, and I'm kind of alternating. I'm going with a little bit of color of this, a little bit of color of that. I'm trying to have fun with it. Heaven forbid. If I do bring in too much water, that's when, just like any other shape, they can start getting weird. I have a desire to try to bring in a little bit more water, somewhat watery, but not too watery ultramarine blue. And I don't know where I heard the phrase, but it always cracked me up of somebody saying, "It's my painting, I'll do what I want." So that might be sort of a little bit too harsh of a transition, and it's not dissolving quite as much as I was hoping. So I might might as well just get mad and walk away. Wait a minute. It's going to be kind of interesting here. What if I brought in a little bit of clear water? A little bit, emphasis on a little bit, with a smaller brush. And all of this will take, to state the hopefully obvious, time to figure out how far the color will go and how far it will blend and how far when it will stop and when it won't stop and where you want it to stop. That was just a little bit of clear water, and in the spirit of just trying to get that paint to move a little bit more. If everything's too dry, it's not going to move. Going Indigo and Ultramarine. I do want to make it pretty dark also over here. My lighting is a little bit weird. It's kind of hard to see. Wah. Darker in this corner, which will have the effect of forcing the eye towards the focal point. Same thing over here. The darker color having the effect of not letting the eye wander off this corner. I'm going to change this banana a little bit to help with that, because there's a little too much contrast and the darkness of the background and the lightness of the banana. Ooh, I really hope that's in frame. Anyways, I'm going to try one last little thing here of some dark. I think this is still sort of wet enough where it's going to kind of move. This brush looks like it has a couple. It looks like antlers. I like that. Visually, I like that. I don't like it as a tool. It's like a snail or something. I may try to fix that, or I may just relegate it to being used as a brush for using masking fluid. I'm going to call that good. While I'm sort of using all these similar colors, I'm going to come back into this part of the background, this little trapped space, which can present some challenges as far as making sure that if you do these parts of the background in different passes with different colors, they can look a little bit like mine is looking now, and it doesn't really appear like to be that it's a continuation of the background that we know we see. It looks a little bit too reddish, grayish for my taste. And since it's just the background, and it's okay, in fact it's good if sort of weird things happen, weird blurry things happen. Even though this was really quite dry, and normally I wouldn't go back and try to introduce any more paint, because this will mostly just start looking overworked. I wanted to make sure that I was using some of the same paint color in both these parts of the background to make sure that they read as part of the background. You might be able to hear that. Some kind of tool being used in the sound background. It sort of begs the question, like, well, wait a minute, this is part of the background down here too, right? And I wet that pretty early on, and that area is very dry. And if I do want to sort of make sure that that at least reads also as a continuation of this background, I'm going to dampen with clear water a little bit of the paper, and I want to introduce just a tiny bit, just enough so it doesn't darken everything down next to my apple, but enough of this color that it still reads as a continuation of what that area is. And you may have to do this on different passes. I'm kind of cheating a little bit because I know what to do just in case my paper, I have a better idea of what to do if my paper isn't exactly dry or as damp as I sort of want it to be. And you may have to do it in a couple different passes just to have a little bit more control. Squint. I almost said I'm going to call that good, but once again, just sort of getting familiar with when your brush is dispensing paint and when it's being a sponge. Yes, good enough for now. Okay, back in a bit. Kind of like what's going on up here.